Welcome to Start Disrupting, a podcast series. We're focusing on innovators, and we want to take you inside the Research Park enterprise to meet our community of inventors, designers, creatives that they're really impacting industries and bringing really strong companies to market. At the CRC, we have exciting areas such as aerospace, software, biotech, autonomous vehicles, as well as sensor and electronics hardware. Today, we're talking with Dan Sable of VPT, one of our earliest partners in the CRC, focusing on power conversion for mission-critical hardware and aviation and spaceflight. So Dan and I go way back. Dan did his Ph.D. at Virginia Tech in electrical engineering, and he was part of the Center for Power Electronics. And Dan is a very well-respected engineer in the industry, specifically around power electronics, and has received numerous awards, and really was part of the cohort of companies starting up in the mid-90s here in the CRC. Dan notably has been recently inducted to Virginia Tech Academy of Engineering Excellence, and so we're really glad to have Dan on the show. Dan, welcome, and tell us a little bit about VPT.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Brett. I call myself kind of like an accidental entrepreneur because I started VPT back in 1993, shortly after I got my PhD here at Virginia Tech. The way it all got started was my thesis advisor, Dr. Fred Lee, literally stopped me in the hallway one day and asked me if I was interested in if I'd ever thought about starting a company. And I said, no, I've never really thought about it. And he goes, well, let's give it a try. So that's how VPT got started.
Yeah, and sort of instinctively, you knew you were on to a good opportunity and all the good work. And I remember Fred Lee and, the work that there are so many great researchers that came out of that institution and that center. So tell us a little bit about some of the industries you serve and a little bit about, some of the hardware. And I know you're flying on some really cool military as well as spaceflight hardware. Tell us a little bit about what your product is and where it ends up in the overall mission chain.
Okay, so look, what VPT does, we design and manufacture DC to DC power converters, which for mission critical applications, as you say, military, commercial, aerospace, satellites. My background is from the space industry. Originally, before I came to Virginia Tech for my PhD, I worked at what was RCA Astro. And funny you mentioned about some critical applications. So this week, actually, the next 2 weeks, we'll be landing on Mars. So DC to DC power conversion, typically you have on an aircraft or a military or a space application, a 28-volt DC regulated bus. And what we do is we sell a product line of these power converters that convert that 28 volts into whatever voltage you want. 5 volts, 3.3 volts, 12 volts, 15 volts, whatever power you want, 5 watts, 15 watts, 100 watts, whatever. So we have a broad product line that does exactly that. If that's a short way of describing what we do.
That must be incredibly rewarding to see your hardware, on these missions, missions to Mars, obviously on some of the most advanced defense systems, as well as what NASA is doing. It just must be, did you ever think 25 years ago that, you would be sitting here seeing your hardware flying to Mars?
No, the answer to that question is absolutely not.
Yeah.
I really didn't have a good feeling for what we were going to do. Just kind of all bootstrapped and very, very gradually increased over the years. Probably one of the more missions I'm proud of is we're on all the GPS satellites right now. So I tell people that, whenever you receive a GPS signal onto your cell phone or whatever, that's coming from our power supplies.
That's awesome. Yeah. And, it's a good segue into the topic, because when you talk about being an accidental entrepreneur, when you talk about not really, bootstrapping, it really speaks to the heart of now where you and I both are sort of in a position to give back, mentor, and help some of our youngest entrepreneurs and startups. So you're a member or a mentor for RAMP, RAMP is our regional accelerator and mentoring program. And, you know, your involvement with them really helps, especially as such a deep subject matter expert when you see companies coming across. So tell us briefly about, you know, your involvement in RAMP and what kinds of companies you see and how you're helping them.
So yes, I've seen several different types of companies over the years. What's interesting, and look, I guess I'm somewhat always a little cynical. I'll just say that, because I see a lot of folks who try to, for example, commercialize some technology that comes out of the university. And I always caution people with that, because taking a new technology and coming up with a good commercial business that makes money is really, really difficult. I've seen a lot of people try at that and not do so well. Yeah. People really underestimate the difficulties in qualifying a product, making a product manufacturable, trying to actually sell it for a profit. Yeah. So that's part of what I do when I mentor folks, is I try to bring them, you know, a lot of folks come with all this excitement, what they're going to do, change the world, and I kind of temper things down a little bit to try to keep them on level ground, if you will.
I think that's good advice. You know, I remember coming from the software industry, I remember very clearly there's this sort of theme, if you will, of is it a feature, is it a product, or is it a business? And, you know, a lot of people try to take what might be considered a feature or even a software product, but it's not really, doesn't really have the legs for business. And so, you know, how do you help young entrepreneurs sort that out? And when you do see that passion and excitement for something, certainly, you know, we want to harness that and steer them in a directly, you know, in a productive direction. And as you pointed out with the university and some of the research they do with commercializing technology, there's a lot of promising intellectual property. You know, how do you help the young entrepreneurs think about things more holistically and understand from a market need first, as opposed to a, you know, technology push?
Well, the first thing I try to understand from them and I try to impress upon them is, okay, how are you going to make money on this whole thing? Yeah. I get a lot of folks who come to me with these software ideas that say they're just going to give it away and then try to, you know, run ads or whatever, Google ads, you know, which is a business model that I admit right from the start when they approached me with this that I don't know very much about. Okay, I'll try to understand that business model. My thinking is very, very, very traditional, which is you try to design a product, manufacture it, and sell it for a profit. Okay, which I know is sometimes a little.
It works. It's a proven model, and it's a great place to start.
It seems to be out of favor these days. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
So I really try to understand, you know, how are you going to make money on this? Okay, is it, okay, I get software as a service, I get, you know, updates and you know, and ads and, you know, and so forth. But I really, really try to focus in as, okay, how is this business going to make money? And that's really what I try to get the folks thinking about. You know, is it, you know, is it a product? Is it a service? How are you going to charge for the service? Where are your customers? One of the things I also stress is, you know, you've got to think globally. You know, that we live in a global market. You know, we got to think, you know, how are you going to try to market or manufacture your idea maybe overseas? You know, so that's something that is, I think, a real key to success as well.
Yeah, and from what I know, you know, the people. The passion that the people have and the grit that an entrepreneur has to think about taking this mentoring advice and apply it and keep moving forward. That's really separates people from, you know, those who have an idea, but they're not willing to sort of pivot, or they're not willing to sort of grind it out. And in some ways they might have a thought in mind about how the business model should go, but, you know, the reality is getting all of this input and learning. And, you know, what makes a great entrepreneur is someone who's, you know, willing to continuously learn and think about how to evolve this.
Absolutely. I have to say that that's one of the first things I I look for in a young entrepreneur is, are they willing to listen to advice?
Yeah.
I have, unfortunately, I have, some folks who, I can't give them advice because they know everything, or at least they tell me.
Yeah.
I always like to seek out folks who are, willing to accept advice, and that's very important to me.
Yeah, and RAMP really puts an emphasis on trying to create holistic teams, and so the team,
that's important.
Having a team of entrepreneurs and having a young team come together, before they even figure out business models or technology, they have to really figure out how to work together. And
Absolutely.
The teamwork, the chemistry between co-founders is so critical, and it's something that we overlook. But if you get that right and you figure out how the team can divide and conquer, because there's way too much work for any 1, 2, 3, 4 people to do. So, if you get the chemistry of the team right, you can naturally start to think, you can pivot so much easier. But if there's friction in a team, you got to get rid of that. Otherwise, you'll never be able to pivot without having, conflict.
Yeah, and that's absolutely correct. Actually, one of the things that I've noticed over the years is that teams that don't get along, which are unfortunately not the exception. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
I've seen several businesses fall apart because the teams could not get along well.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's unfortunate. And if you think about it, how many of us have all of the expertise required to run a business? Think about it. You need to develop products, you need to have quality, you need to have manufacturing, you need to have finance, you need to have marketing, you need to have sales capability. Nobody has all of those talents.
Yeah.
So finding a good team is so critical, and then making sure the team gets along is also extremely critical.
Yeah, I know. In some cases, mentors go through, almost start to feel like counselors in helping the human dynamic get through this. And I think entrepreneurs that come through strong science and math and technology driven degree, a Ph.D. coming out with an engineering degree, hasn't had a lot of training in terms of, teamwork, human dynamic, and, being able to work within conflict of a team. And so those are skills that need to be developed. Obviously, if they're young and they just haven't had a lot of life experience, they need to think about that as a requisite skill. They need to allow enough energy to go into that. Otherwise, if they ignore it, they're just going to get blindsided later. Yeah,
absolutely. Actually, one of the things I found is that these engineers that you speak of, these technology people, actually make very, very poor salespeople. So I always am looking for someone who knows how to market and sell the idea, as opposed to someone that the technologist who is able to come up with the idea or the product.
Yeah, the engineer is a guy who's back home, and when the sales guy comes in off the road, he's the one that says, "You told him you could do what?" Well, listen, Dan, it's been great. So you're mentoring to these companies, invaluable. Tell us a little bit about the CRC culture, and you've made the transition. You were an early entrepreneur in this ecosystem, and now, as you say, you're starting to really give back in big ways. Tell us about the CRC culture in general, and how has it shaped your experience?
Well, I can't say enough good things about the CRC. Actually, I remember my first meeting with Joe Meredith. This was back in 1994. When we had, we were a 2 or 3 person company, and he offered me this building right across the street from where I am right now, a 1-room office. Okay. And the first words out of his mouth was, "We are here to help you succeed." And he was just so true to his word. We started to grow, and I even before our lease was up, I said, "Joe, we need some bigger space." And he said, "Well, I got some space right down the street. So he gave us some bigger space there, and then we grew out of that. And he says, well, I can give you some more space on the top floor there, and that worked out really well. But then the interesting thing was when we grew out of that and we needed some more manufacturing capability, I said, Joe, I don't think the CRC right now is going to work for us anymore. I'm buying a building at the industrial park. And he said, Dan, I consider that a success, okay? And he says, I'll always, be keeping you in mind as a CRC person. So for 15 years, we moved over to the Blacksburg Industrial Park. And then when we grew out of that, I went back to Joe. I said, Joe, can you build me a building? And he says, yeah, I can build you a building right there, and I'll have it done in 7 months. And I said, no way. And there's a picture of me and Joe with our gold shovels digging the first dig, and lo and behold, 7 months to the day, we were in that building, and this is where we are right now. I thought for sure we were only going to need the one floor, the bottom floor. So I said, Joe, you can rent out the top floor, and he did. and then I said, Joe, can we just move up? So now we're taking over pretty much the whole building, and as you know. And so I just can't say enough good things about the way the CRC has been for us. Just a tremendous place, and I just love it here.
That's such a great story. And it really talks about the experiences that companies grow, the way companies grow here, and the flexibility to create the space as it's needed as companies evolve, and we try to be as flexible as possible because we understand that these, especially as you've grown organically, there are just certain needs in the lifestyle of a company, and you have to be flexible. So we appreciate having you here in the park, Dan. We appreciate what you do, and we're looking forward to great reports from Mars. And so continued success to you. And we're just so thankful to have you in the park, your leadership, and what VPT is doing in the industry.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Brett.
I'm going to wrap this up. I've got a couple quick announcements. First of all, 40 Gs. If that's interesting to you, join the Global Case Challenge for a first place prize of $40,000. What we're doing this year is, because of COVID, we're creating what we call Global Case Challenge for international student teams. These international student teams will be working on design and case challenges that our companies are submitting. So we're both soliciting student teams internationally as well as cases that can be submitted. So these might be business problems, engineering, technical problems, or just interesting market analysis. Go to the website vtkwglobal.com, and you can find more information there. Secondly, the second announcement is, as we mentioned, RAMP is our regional accelerator. It's an early stage mentoring program. We're really pleased to have them in the area. They're providing a valuable service. So RAMP, we're excited, is also launching a 12-week curriculum specifically for life sciences companies. So Mary Miller at RAMP is actively recruiting companies to join the program that you just heard about from Dan. And we're looking for specifically life sciences companies that we can focus on. That's a 12-week curriculum, as I mentioned, free space, access to venture capital, and $20,000 in equity-free funding. So you can't go wrong there. Visit RAMP RB, that's RAMPRB.com, and Mary Miller will definitely take care of you and get your application in. Dan, again, thanks. It's been a pleasure, and we're looking forward to great things, and thank you for being in the park. Thanks for joining us this morning on Start Disrupting.
My pleasure. Good to talk to you, Brett. You take care.